All right, so today we're diving into this whole Ukraine counteroffensive thing.
Okay.
And it's kind of like, when you're planning a surprise party
Yeah.
and you think you've got the element of surprise totally nailed down,
Mm-hmm.
but then it just kind of falls flat.
Yeah.
That's kind of what we're seeing play out right now.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Specifically in the Kursk region. The counteroffensive was supposed to be this big pushback against Russian forces,
Right.
relieve some pressure on the Eastern Front,
Right.
but the reality on the ground, it's complicated.
It is, yeah. And to really grasp the weight of it, we have to remember just how audacious Ukraine's initial move was. I mean, this counteroffensive, it marked their biggest push into Russian territory since World War II.
Wow.
So it's no wonder that Moscow was caught off guard. They were not expecting that level of aggression.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So like early days of the counteroffensive, there were some wins.
Yeah.
Right? What made those early successes possible?
You're right, and initially the element of surprise played a huge role. Ukraine was able to exploit some gaps in Russia's defenses.
Okay.
And for a minute there, it seemed like they might actually be able to flip the script,
Yeah.
change the momentum of the whole conflict.
What?
But holding that captured territory, that's where things get really difficult.
Especially because, and this number really jumped out at me, Russia actually made their biggest land grab in months during August.
Yeah.
Right in the middle of all this.
Right in the thick of it.
Do we know how much land we're talking about?
Yeah.
And what's the strategic importance of those areas?
So we're talking roughly 1,200 square miles that Russia was able to seize,
Wow.
primarily in the Donbas region.
Right.
And if you remember, that area has been a focal point of this conflict for years now.
Yeah, for sure.
Controlling the Donbas would give Russia a huge advantage, militarily and politically.
Okay, so it's like Ukraine throws this surprise party,
Yeah.
catches everyone off guard for a minute,
Uh-huh.
and then the guest of honor, Russia, they kind of regain their composure.
Yeah.
They turn the tables.
Exactly.
And to make matters worse, it's not just about the land itself.
No.
It's about the people who are stuck there,
Yeah.
living through this every single day.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's easy to forget about the human cost when we're looking at maps and talking about strategy.
Absolutely.
These soldiers on the front lines are facing relentless pressure,
They are, yeah.
constant danger.
Every single day.
Speaking of the soldiers, there was this one quote from the report that really stuck with me.
Yeah.
It was about how they were hoping this counteroffensive would force Russia to divert troops from other areas.
Right.
Give them some breathing room.
Yeah.
That hasn't really happened, has it?
No, not entirely. And that's why understanding the initial aim of the counteroffensive is so crucial.
Okay.
Ukraine was trying to draw Russian forces north towards Kursk.
Right.
The hope was to weaken Russia's grip on the south, especially around the Zaporizhia region.
Gotcha.
Cut off those supply lines, make it harder to hold on to their gains.
It's like if you can weaken the defenses in one area.
It creates opportunities elsewhere.
Precisely.
But if those troops aren't moving like they expected,
Right.
the impact on morale has got to be significant.
It is, yeah. And that's where these firsthand accounts from the soldiers are so important. They give us a window into the psychological toll of this war.
Sure.
Just imagine being on the front lines every single day, waiting for that relief to come,
Right.
only to realize that the enemy is not backing down.
Yeah.
They're just as determined as ever.
It's got to be demoralizing.
It's incredibly draining, both physically and mentally.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
There was another quote that got to me.
Okay.
A soldier was talking about how they're trying to stay positive, keep each other's spirits up, but they're constantly on edge.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking.
And it really highlights the long-term consequences here.
Yeah,
How long can Ukraine keep this up?
exactly.
Militarily, but also in terms of their morale. If they don't start achieving their objectives, it's a question a lot of people are asking.
Especially with the pressure Zelensky is under.
Right.
The report mentioned him practically begging European allies for more weapons,
Yeah.
more support. It feels desperate.
It does, yeah. It feels like there's this massive disconnect between how urgently Ukraine is pleading for help
Yeah.
and the long game of international diplomacy,
Yeah, it's like they're saying, we need these things right now to survive.
Right.
But the allies are thinking way down the line.
Exactly. Like 10 steps ahead.
Exactly.
And it's like, okay, remember that surprise party analogy?
Okay.
Like they're trying to make the party so bad, so unappealing,
Right.
that the guest of honor just decides to leave.
Yeah.
But instead of cake and balloons,
Right.
we're talking about like tanks and artillery.
Yeah, it's a bit of a different kind of party.
It's just a little bit, yeah.
The whole idea is to make it so costly for Russia to stay in this fight.
Yeah, that they're going to be more open to actually negotiating a real solution.
Okay, that makes sense.
Something that Ukraine can actually live with.
But what if that doesn't happen?
Right.
What if Russia doesn't back down? Like, what if they call their bluff?
That's the big question mark here.
Is a big one.
And honestly, it's really tied to all the uncertainty around this upcoming U.S. election.
Because if, and I can't believe we're even saying this,
I know.
if a certain former president were to get back into power, well,
let's just say their track record with Ukraine isn't exactly reassuring.
Yeah, not exactly a glowing endorsement.
No, not at all. And that just throws a whole other wrench into things.
Definitely.
Because if the U.S. pulls back their support,
right,
even a little bit,
yeah,
it could have a domino effect.
Other allies might follow suit.
Exactly.
So we've got all these challenges with the counteroffensive itself.
Yeah.
We've got these soldiers who are just absolutely exhausted.
Yep, absolutely.
And this whole diplomatic tightrope walk.
It's a very delicate balance.
It is. And on top of all of that, you've got the U.S. election looming over everything.
A lot of uncertainty there.
Understatement of the year, maybe.
Yeah.
So where does that leave us? What happens next?
Well, I think it's pretty clear we're at this really critical point right now.
Yeah.
The next few months are going to be decisive.
For sure.
Not just for Ukraine, but for the future of Europe.
Yeah.
For the entire global order, even it's that serious.
The stakes are high.
Incredibly high.
And one thing's for sure, nobody expected that surprise party to go like this.
Nobody did, and it's anyone's guess how it all ends.
That's the truth. Well, that's about all the time we have for today.
Yeah.
Thanks for breaking it all down with me.
Anytime.
And thank you all for listening.